Alright, let me go over this practice test. So evaluate the 6 trig functions given a triangle UVW. Should be a right triangle, you know that because of the hypotenuse, where UV is equal to 2 and the hypotenuse UW is equal to 3. So there's my picture. Notice I'm missing the third side here. This is not the hypotenuse, so 2 squared plus this squared equals the hypotenuse squared, which is 3 squared. So 9 equals 4 plus VW squared. Subtract 4, take the square root, raise your hand if you got the square root of 5. Now, in this problem I didn't specify finding your 6 trig functions from which angle. What does that mean? So if you picked angle U, and then you did the opposite adjacent hypotenuse, then these are your 6 trig ratios. If you chose angle W, then you would have had opposite adjacent hypotenuse, and these would be your 6 trig functions. Don't forget, I'm going to ask you on the non-calculator part to essentially you would have to simplify. So if you left it as 2 radical 5, I'm going to give you partial credit, full credit. I want you to rationalize. So take this number radical over itself, multiply across, 2 radical 5 over 5 will give you. The second question, number 1, it says find the length of an arc of a circle if the radius is 3 feet and the angle is pi over 4 radians. So fractions are part over whole, so arc length is a part to its whole, which is the circumference 2 pi r, and then depending how that angle here is measured, I might give you either radians over 2 pi, which is a full rotation, right, or degrees over 360. So in this problem I gave you radians because it tells you they're radians. So pi over 4 over 2 pi equals my arc length over 2 pi times 3. 3 is my radius. So here I get 6 pi, cross multiply, 6 pi times pi over 4, and then arc length is 2 pi times the arc length. To divide is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. So 1 over 2 pi on both sides, cancel my 2's. And when you simplify, you'll get an arc length of 3 pi over 4, or approximately 2.36 feet. Raise your hand if you got that. Good job, you. Alright, so on your last quiz I wasn't very clear, so hopefully I'll be clear this time, because I'll have a part where it says non-calculator, so you know if it has non-calculator and it asks you to evaluate, well, you're just using your unit circle, because you can't push anything into the calculator. Does that make sense? So here I have tangent of negative 300. I'm going to add 360 degrees. Why did I do that? Because tangent of 60 is now in the unit circle. Now I have a positive coterminal angle. The reason why I did that is because it's on my unit circle. Tangent of 60. There's tangent of 60. My order pair on that first dot is 1/2 comma, that's a 3, radical 3 over 2. Tangent is y over x. So this order pair, I just need the numerators. So y, which is radical 3 over 1, gives me radical 3 is my answer. Question number 4. Anything with a denominator 4, it's a 45, so it is the middle point there in my unit circle. 5 pi over 4, I know it's in quadrant 3, right? Because if I was counting, that would be 1 pi, 3 pi, 5 pi over 4. And then if you're doing your counting technique from the quadrantal, it'll be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, then count back 0, 1, 2. So here in quadrant 3, they're both negative. Cosine is just the second order pair. So there's cosine. And my answer is just negative radical 2 over 2. Turn the page. Same thing, evaluate without the calculator. Basically means use unit circle. Notice how I'm kind of deriving my triangles just using the unit circle. So cosecant of negative 2 pi over 3, don't like the negatives, get a coterminal angle. Full rotation in radians is 6 pi over 3. Negative 2 plus 6 gives me a positive 4. Cosecant of 4 pi over 3. Well, if I'm counting, right, 0, 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This one is 8 pi over 6. So 6, 7. That's why I crossed that one. I made a mistake. And there's 8. 8 pi over 6 reduces to 4 pi over 3. From here, my order pair is negative 1/2 negative radical 3 over 2. I chose the sign because sine is y over r. And cosecant is the letters r over y. So I get the answer. If I just flip this, I get negative 2 over radical 3. Well, I can't have a radical there. Rationalize it, multiply across. You get negative 2 radical 3 over 3. Remember, the numbering was messed up. Question number 6. Again, I have an angle that's too big. It's a positive, so I can just subtract. You can use that formula as well. Get a coterminal angle. 2 negative rotations, negative 720 gives me sine of 30. Sine of 30 is that first bullet point there in your unit circle. Remember, if you're doing this old school, that's a 30-degree angle. And 30, 60, 90s. You have 1x, 2x, and then x radical 3. So across here you have the y-axis parallel to the y-axis. 1, r is going to be 2 across the 90, and then your x value is going to be radical 3. So I need sine, which is y over r, which would be 1/2 is your answer. Now again, that's the reason why we have the unit circle, because it gives me an order pair already. There's my answer. I technically don't really need to draw all that out. But some of you are still kind of stuck on that, right? Which is okay. It's totally fine. But the unit circle makes things go a lot faster. And you can always double check your answers. All students take calculus. So here, all the trig functions are positive. In question number 5 above that we just did, only tangent and cotangent are positive. Everything else should be negative. And that little last question there, it tells us secant of negative 7 pi over 6. I don't like negative angle, so I did 12 pi over 6. Gives me 5 pi over 6. 5 pi over 6 I know has got to be past 3 pi over 6, because that's pi over 2 there at the quadrantal. So that would be 4, and this would be 5 pi over 6. Cosine sine, negative radical 3 over 2, comma 1/2. X over r is secant, so that is the reciprocal of cosine. So 2 over negative radical 3. Rationalize, you get negative 2 radical 3 over 3. Question number 8. Tree casts a 30-foot shadow. Well, to get a shadow, I need to have the sun. And the sun has to hit an object, so there's actually a shadow. So there's a shadow. An angle of elevation to the top of the tree is 41 degrees. So from the ground, looking up is your angle of elevation. Looking up, elevation. How tall is the tree? That's h. I have the opposite. This is the hypotenuse, which you don't need because you don't have any numbers or variables. And you have the adjacent here, so you're going to use tangent. Tangent of 41 equals h over 30. Cross multiply. Put in your calculator h, or 30 times tangent of 41, you get approximately 26 feet. I'll probably be specific when you're round. Number 9. Alright. An observer in a lighthouse above, 350 feet above the sea level. Here's my lighthouse. 350 feet tall. There's my observer, person watching out there. 2 ships directly offshore. You're just looking at two boats in the ocean. The angle of depression to the ships are 4 degrees. Okay, so I put that in 4 degrees. That's my green there. So, as one student noted, this is the line of sight. So there's your line of sight. So looking down for depression, the depression is 4 degrees. And also 6.5 degrees. Okay, so 4 degrees is just a little one, right? Now, that means, if I look at my picture, 4 degrees is my angle of depression, which means the other side is 86 degrees. Okay? If I have 6.5 degrees, that means the complement, which means they have to be equal to 90 degrees, is 83.5. So think about this. Ready? The smaller degree means that this person can actually look out further. Let me say that again. 4 degrees, it's a smaller angle, right? It's almost like flat. And that means they're looking out further. So the furthest boat away, that's the furthest one away, that's my big triangle. 6.5 degrees is a bigger angle than 4. Okay? If it's a bigger angle going down, that's the boat looking closest to the lighthouse. That's the 6.5 degrees. So on my picture, I wrote y is the distance between the first boat and the lighthouse, and then x plus y gives me the distance between the second boat and the lighthouse. And I'm just trying to find how far apart are those ships. I call that variable x. So based off of my picture, let me do the small triangle over here. I did 83.5 degrees. Lighthouse is 350, that's x. So my trig ratio is the opposite, x over 350, that's tangent. I'm solving for x. The reason why I solve for x is because both pictures have the variable x. I get x is equal to 350 times tangent 83.5. That's approximately 3,071. Raise your hand if you got that. Okay, the second triangle now is the one with green. Its complement is 86. The opposite is x plus y. And then the adjacent would be 350. You can cross multiply there. I have 350 tan 86 equals x plus y. I'm trying to get both of my equations here to set. They're both equal to x. Because that's what I'm trying to solve up here. Does that make sense? So all I have to do there is just subtract y. And I get x by itself. X equals 350 tangent 86 minus y. I'm trying to solve for x. Well, I know an x value from over here. You can't see that? Of course you can. I just found x on my other triangle. Now I can put it over here and use it. There's my substitution in my systems of equations. I have now 3,071.91. I can just subtract that from both sides. And this is a minus y, so I can add y to both sides. 350 times tangent of 86 gives me 5,005.23, and then I'm just subtracting those two values, and I get 1,933.32. Second question, or next one. I told you guys to cross off the word depression, because I don't want you to be depressed. A 20-foot ladder is leaning against the wall. So here's my 20-foot ladder. The angle, so I cross it off, the angle of the ladder to the wall, so from the ladder to the wall, is 41 degrees. How far up the wall does the ladder reach? They want to know the height of which the ladder goes on this side. So there I have opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse. You only have adjacent and hypotenuse, so that'll give you cosine of 41. Cosine of 41 equals x over 20. Cross multiply. Calculate ready equation and get approximately 15. Next slide. Find two coterminal angles, one positive, one negative. Well, it gives me a negative angle, and if I add 360 degrees, that's what coterminal means. It basically means same position, right? We'll be in the same quadrant. So negative 405 degrees, if I add 360, is the same as the negative 45. They'll be in the quadrant 4 here. So there's my negative angle. Now I need a positive angle. Well, I can just add 360 more and I get 315. These are not the only answers, but I thought they were the quickest answers. Again, you guys can also use the formula. Question number 12. Leave your answer in radians. 2 pi over 3, again, you can just add or subtract a full circle. So 6 pi over 3, 2 plus 6 gives me 8 pi over 3. Subtract it, negative 4 pi over 3. Question number 17, last word problem. The bell's going to ring in 2 minutes. Just leave quietly so I can record the rest of the problem. And traveling across flat land, you notice a mountain directly in front of you. It's an angle of elevation to the peak. So there's the 4 degrees. This is the mountain of success. After you drive 15 minutes closer, so you're going towards it, sorry, 15 miles closer, so that's 15, the angle of elevation is now 7 degrees, right? How tall is the mountain? Well, you don't know the distance between the mountains, so I call that x, and you want to know what the height of the mountain is. So number 1, draw a picture. Picture is most important. Number 2, I drew 2 triangles, so I separate my triangles there. And a hint is you want to try to solve for a common variable. So here you have x and h. And if you did the big triangle, you also have x and h. Okay? I decided to solve both of them for the variable h. 7 degrees and h and x, I have tangent of 7 equals h over x. Divide, multiply both sides by x, h is equal to x tan 7. On this problem, I have 4 degrees, opposite is h, over the adjacent, which is 15 plus x. Here, if I multiply both sides by 15 plus x, I get h equals 15 plus x times tangent of 4. Now, if they're both equal to h, I can set them equal to each other. So here I have x tan 7 equals 15 plus x tangent of 4 degrees. Not 40, it's 4. Here I distributed 15 tan 4 plus x tan 4. I move this over to this side, so I'm going to subtract. So that goes away. 15 tan 4 equals x tan 7 minus x tan 4. Take out the GCF of an x. I want to move all of this expression to the right side, so I'm dividing, so these will cancel. Here I have a calculator-ready equation. Now, do not be tempted to do 7 minus 4. That would be incorrect. Do not put in your calculator tangent minus tangent of 3. That would be incorrect. And you should get x is approximately 19.8. Last thing you need to do is substitute x to solve for h. Go back over here, pick your easiest equation. I picked this one, so I just put in 19.8467. Or is that 2167? 467 times tangent of 7, and you get a height of approximately 2.437 miles. Good luck on your test.